Congratulations. Your son or daughter is ready to head off to college. Let's just hope you are as well. We're going to do a couple of things today. We're going to introduce the fact that we have a counseling center, and we'll talk real briefly about our counseling services. We'll talk about some of the developmental changes we see in college students and kind of give you a heads up on that. Now, most of orientation is focused on your son or daughter, and that makes sense. But we're going to do something a little bit different during the latter part of this particular workshop, and that's we're going to focus on you, and we're going to talk about you as parents. Because when our sons or daughters go off to college, we as parents experience transitions. The whole family does as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have a couple of different goals for this particular session. One is we want to provide a context for what you're going through to help it make sense. The second is we want to really normalize what you're experiencing. Okay? Now, in the interest of keeping you awake, I'm going to ask for your participation in this next thing. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You can't get them wrong, so don't worry, it's not a test. And I'd like you to raise your hand when you're answering these. Now, my college students, when I teach, this is how they raise their hands when I ask a question. Yeah, okay? Don't do that. Raise your hand and hold it up, if you would, for a little while. Okay? Everybody ready? Here come the tough questions. How many of you, to varying degrees, are excited about your son or daughter heading off to college? Look around. This is normal. Good. Flip side, how many of you, to varying degrees, might be nervous about your son or daughter going off to college? Look around. This is kind of normal. Okay? Anybody happy to have their son or daughter leave for college? It's okay, you can admit it. Again, this is really, really normal. And finally, are any of you experiencing a little bit of sadness or a lot of sadness? Okay, look around. Normal, 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 normal. And if you looked around, you notice that a lot of people, me included, we raised our hand for multiple emotions. It's really normal for us to be happy and a little sad, excited, a little nervous, this whole range of emotions. That's normal. It's also normal that we see a variety between people, but also from moment to moment, hour to hour, in terms of how intensely we feel those emotions. So when I ask how many people are nervous, there are some folks who just didn't raise their hands at all. And that might simply be because they're not nervous. I don't assume this is some Freudian defense mechanism. This person's not in touch with her or his emotions. You just might not be nervous, and that's okay. On the other hand, most of us are in the middle, and we could get to an extreme of emotions that we would start to think, well, maybe that's not so normal. Okay? Years ago, I move around, as you noticed, and once in a while I'm going to get down like this, so I hope you can see me in the back. Years ago, I did this presentation, and right at this middle table here, when I walk in about 15 minutes early to do the presentation, there's a mom, and she's crying. Okay, just kind of sitting there weeping. She cried the entire presentation. And then we wrap up, and I'm getting ready to leave, and she still is sitting there crying. And so I walked over, and, I noticed you've been crying for the last, hour and a half. And just want to check in, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm just a little weepy. Yeah? And so I headed off, and she kept crying. That's not normal. It's not. Come on, if you're so sad you can't stop crying, none of us want that. If you're so sad that it gets in the way of the excitement, then there's something going on, and we really want you to tend to that, okay? If you're so nervous about them heading off to college that you've already purchased a house across Cleveland Avenue, you tag team and registered for every one of your son or daughter's classes, that's not normal. Don't do that. And if you're one of those folks who's so excited about them leaving for college, your plan is to leave without them today and leave them here. No, don't. Okay? We love your sons and daughters, but we're not ready for them quite yet. You got to take them home with you. Okay? So, these emotions are real normal. But if they're really, really extreme, we would want you to kind of take a look at that and see what else is going on. Finally, what we want to do today is we want to answer your questions. That's kind of the whole point of orientation, is to give you information that we think is helpful and then give you information that you need or want. So if you have questions, jump in with those. I hate asking questions in a large group, and if you're like that, come and check with me later. Shoot me an email, talk with me right after the presentation, but get your questions answered. The other thing is, the only time I ever come up with brilliant questions is when I'm on my way home or the next day. And if that's the case for you, again, give us a call, shoot us an email. We want to answer your questions. That's really, really important. That's why we have this day of events. Okay, individuality. Always remember that you're unique, just like everybody else, of course. There's truth to this. We know that there are common themes, common things we see every year from our college students in terms of their development and the transition. We also know that's true for parents. Okay, so there are these things that are very, very common. We also know, though, that your son or daughter comes into this situation with a unique set of skills and gifts and abilities and limitations and challenges. And so do you as parents. So do we as families. So the reality is no matter what I say, not everything is going to fit all of you perfectly. Okay? But again, we're going to make you do some work here. Okay, show of hands. And this first question you've been asked 2, maybe 3 times today already. For how many of you is this your first son or daughter going off to college? Okay, so quite a few. Any of you your second? Okay, so more than in the first session. Anybody your third? Wow, that's a lot. Great. Anybody 4 or more? Okay, I'm impressed. How many? Anybody 5 or more? Okay, so let's see the 4 or more. Okay, so a handful of you. Now, I've only done this twice, so obviously you know more about this than I do. So I need one of you to come up, finish the rest of the presentation, and I'm going to go home early. Any takers? Okay. A couple more questions for you. For how many of you is this your last son or daughter going off to college? Wow, a lot. So this is a whole different experience. Okay, for any of you, is this your first and your last simultaneously? Okay. Wow, you get the daily double here. It's brand new and potentially the empty nest is in the near future. And then last question on this part. For how many of you will your son or daughter be living at home and commuting to campus? Any commuters? Okay? So families where their sons or daughters living at home face some very, very different challenges and transitions. It can feel like high school because off they go and then they come home, and we can treat them like it's high school. But the reality is on this end of things, it's not high school. It's very, very different. So we'll talk about some ways that that transition is a little bit different for commuter students and their families. Okay. Now's the time where I talk briefly about our counseling services. The one take home with this part is that we have a counseling center. Everybody got that? Please nod your head. Yes. I can see you. I can see if you're nodding or not. Okay. We provide the mental health services for the St. Thomas community. There's a handful of things that we do. Most of our time is spent in individual and group counseling. Students are the only ones that are eligible for that. And once classes start, your son or daughter is eligible for those services. The second thing we do is we do a lot of outreach, a lot of training, whether that's working with parents or Child Development Center or campus ministry, Res Life. We work with the orientation leaders. We do a lot of outreach in terms of that. And then the third thing we do is we do consultation, okay? Professors call us, people in different departments call us, and they consult with us because they're concerned about something that's going on with a student. Now, this is where it's kind of a bonus for parents. You are eligible for that particular service. You don't get to come to us for counseling, but we invite and welcome you to start consulting with us today. That starts right now. Your sons or daughters, nope, they don't get to get in until classes start. You can start consulting immediately. And we really encourage you to do that. If you have concerns, come and check with us. Sometimes we're not the right people to talk to. We don't care. We'll help you figure out who the right people are, and we'll get you connected with them. We just want to be another entry point for how you get connected with services on campus. Okay? Who are we? Our staff consists of our office manager / receptionist / take care of all of us, and she happens to be sitting in the room right now because her daughter is starting here as a first-year student. We also have 5 senior staff psychologists. We're all doctoral level licensed psychologists. And then we have 6 graduate students, doctoral students who work with us. 3 are full-time staff, and then 3 of them are half-time volunteers. And as part of their training, we supervise them very closely. Each of them has 1 or 2 supervisors from the senior staff. So that's kind of our services. 2 more things that I think are important to know. One is that our services are free. This is your tuition dollar at work. So there's no fee when students come in. If we would do any psychological testing, we do charge a nominal fee for that. And then the last thing that's really important is that if your son or daughter is using our services, we can't tell you. Okay? We have to maintain confidentiality. It's the law. It's what our ethics require. And this is probably 15 years ago, I ran into a situation where it's 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. My 3 o'clock client's in the waiting room. Her dad is there with her. She introduces me to him. You know, hey, sir, pleased to meet you. We go in. We have the session. Dad's there because they're heading, I don't know, up north or something. Okay? So we get done at 3:50. Off they go. It's 4:15. I get a call from Dad. Steve, this is Jim Bernitsky or whatever. I just met you. I got a question about my daughter. You know, and I remember him. I just met him, an hour ago. And I said, I'm afraid that because I don't have any releases of information from your daughter, I can't give you any information. I can't even acknowledge whether or not she's a client. He's like, oh, come on. I can just see his eyes rolling. It's like, come on, we just met. I know, sir, we did. We absolutely did. You can tell me anything you want, but I really can't share with you anything about your daughter. Oh, he says, Jill, say hi to Steve. Hi, Steve. Tell him it's okay to talk to me. It's okay to talk to me. It's still not. I still have to maintain the confidentiality. So we're not trying to be difficult. We're not trying to bust your chops, okay? We just don't want to break the law, and we really want to respect the confidentiality of your son or daughter. You can give us information, all that you want, okay? And if you have general concerns, we can talk about those. If you have concerns about your son or daughter, who should you be talking to? Your son or daughter, absolutely. And we work to have our clients working with the people in their lives who are strong supports for them, and that is typically parents. So on our end, we're really encouraging our clients to talk to you. Okay, so all we're going to do about our services right now. If you have questions, again, feel free to check with me during the break or shoot me an email. Okay, now we're going to get into some theory. Now, we all know as parents that the transition from adolescence to adulthood is this straightforward and simple, right? Nobody is buying that. So I'm going to present an actual model. It's a little bit more complex, but again, it's fairly straightforward. You're all familiar with it. You're all going to roll your eyes and go, we're not stupid, Steve. We know this stuff. But this is what the transition actually looks like. Thank you. This is a joke, okay? This is a joke. Do not go home and say, well, I heard this psychologist at St. Thomas, and he said there's a flux capacitor in the upper left-hand corner, okay? Don't tell them that. Now, there are a couple things in there that probably are true. Can anybody spot those? Not for you or your kids, but what? You got to say it loudly so I can hear. Yeah, this whole regression thing right here. Any of your kids, it seems like they're polished adults 1 minute, and sometimes mid-sentence, they get reduced to the emotions of a 5-year-old. Anyone else, or is that just me and my kids? Never mind. Okay. Any other one up there? Oh, neural growth? Well, there certainly is neural growth that's taking place. It's not all nonsense. The other one that we see sometimes is some of us, this parental bypass mechanism. Some of us do believe that, and maybe you're lucky enough that you do have that one adolescence who that transition is smooth, neat, and linear, and unidirectional, okay? If you're one of those parents that truly has a son or daughter like that, teach me, because you're doing a better job than I am. Okay, so let's actually look at a real model. This next model was developed by a team of researchers. The guy's made his career out of it. He's been studying just college students for 45 years. The findings held true 45 years ago. They're still finding the same thing today. So it's very robust in terms of these are areas of development we see in college students, okay? One is to achieve competence. That just means they get good at stuff, at their major, at doing laundry, at figuring out how to do the bus route, figuring out how to pay taxes or whatever it is. They just get better at stuff. They get competent. They learn to manage their emotions, okay? And sometimes that can look real different when mom and dad aren't around. It can look different when you've always been kind of a big deal, good student, good athlete, and now you get to college and it feels like you're just one of 1,000 and everybody was a good athlete or a good student, good piano player. Developing interpersonal relationships is a goal for college students. Now at St. Thomas, we see that in two particular areas that are kind of unique. Well, either unique or they're not unique. One is that for some of our students, they've never really had to make friends from scratch, or they don't remember. You know, they went to grade school with a group of kids, and then most of them went to middle school, and then a bunch of them went to the same high school, and now maybe they're coming to college for the time, and they don't know anybody. And so that's a new experience, and how do you make those friendships? The second area we see it is that a lot of our students, the majority actually, have never had a roommate before, right? And they will likely have a roommate on campus. And if they've had a roommate at home, who has it probably been? A brother or a sister. Any of you have brothers and sisters? I know when I was growing up, I got 4 older brothers and an older sister. Did the older brothers and sisters, did they ever pull rank because of their age and or size? Of course. Power dynamics are present in sibling relationships. You don't get to do that when you're deciding with your roommates who's going to get what bunk. Well, you were born in August. I was born in July. I'm older. I got dibs. That's not how it works, okay? So they have to figure out how to get along with people, negotiate in a different way. Establishing identity, the sense of who they truly are. A part of that is establishing what they are about. What are their values? What are their paths, whether that's career or faith or academia, politics, whatever that is, what are they all about? Integrating this stuff. How do I integrate all of these different parts of myself? So what I do is consistent with what I value. The things I say truly reflect what I believe in. And then finally, achieving a sense of autonomy and interdependence. Not independence. The mature adult recognizes that she or he is independent in some ways and is very dependent on others. And so this is what we work for. Okay. Now, as I've described that list, let me ask you this. If you really think about it, is there any one of those that's truly new for your son or daughter? The answer is no. None of these are new. You have been working with your sons and daughters on these things their entire lives. How do I know this? Because if you hadn't been, they wouldn't be starting college. So this is really important. The main developmental tasks of college students are no different than what you've been working on for years. Now, it feels different to us. It feels different to them. It's certainly a different setting, but the themes are the same. And we tell you that to remind you, you know what you're doing. When it comes to the parenting, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, think about it. Your sons and daughters, okay, do they manage their emotions better now when they were 5? Please say yes. Because if they don't, it's going to be a really busy year. Okay? Of course they do. I have yet to see a student who didn't get vanilla ice cream at the food services on the floor having a temper tantrum, okay? Maybe that happens at home, okay? Of course. So you know what you're doing when it comes to the parenting. Now, as parents, we all have goals, we all have hopes, we all have expectations. We have a sense of who we want our children to be, we have hopes and dreams. And I'd like you to think about this question. What qualities or attributes would you want your son or daughter to have when they graduate in 4 years? And we're all crossing our fingers and hoping it's 4 years. Now, I could give you a long list, but that would be super boring. So I'm going to ask you to generate what are some qualities that you would hope for. So just toss them out there, and I'll repeat them so everyone can hear them. But let's come up with a list of qualities or attributes. Competence. Competence or confidence? Confidence. They graduate and they leave and they feel confident. Okay, what else? Perseverance. They keep working at stuff. Good. What else? Independence. They're independent from you, from us. Both. Okay. So they have a sense of independence. Good. They're happy. They leave here happy. We don't want to make them sad. Nobody wants that. What? Debt-free. Oh, I hear you on that one. That would be good. Now, keep in mind, we do not promise that they will have all these qualities and attributes when they graduate. It's just what we all hope for. Let's hear some more. These are really good. Resilience. So in times of difficulty, they can be tough enough to keep moving forward. They can handle the hard times, which will come. We all know that. Compassion. They have a sense of compassion for the people around them, maybe for the world, hopefully, for themselves. Maturity, so they are more mature. We can certainly hope. You mean you're not sending us fully mature? Okay, of course not. Generosity, they have a sense of giving. They're generous with their time, with their gifts. Good. Organized. That would be good. You can tell which ones my son excels at or not by how I respond. Mr. Poker Face here. This is a great list. What else? Strong. They're strong. That can mean lots of different things, but we want them to be strong. They still have a sense of curiosity. We hope they're more curious when they leave than when they got here. Absolutely. Smart? We hope so. We'll work on it. That would be good. What? A sense of ownership. Okay. Sense of ownership in terms of their destiny and where they're going. So that sense of purpose. This is my identity. These are my values. This is my direction. Good. Somebody had? Employability. Amen to that. And if that's a real concern of yours, right after this one is the career resources workshop. So thank you. He's a plant, by the way. I owe you $20 here. Okay. This is a really, really good list. 22 years of this, every time I ask parents to generate this list, it looks real similar. Why? Because it's a great list of qualities and attributes that seem pretty universal. Now, if this is an if, it's a hypothetical, if we could guarantee that your son or daughter would have all of those qualities, would you sign up for that? Would you say, yeah, I'm in? Yeah. Me too, absolutely. But what's the cost that we have to pay as parents if we want kids who are strong, who are independent, who are curious, compassionate, and generous, have a sense of their own path? They own their own destiny. What's the price that we pay as parents besides writing checks every semester? Yeah, big bills. What's the We have to let go. We have to recognize that if they're going to carve out their own path, it might not be the path that I had hoped for or dreamed for. It might not be the path that I really think is the right path. They might make decisions that I really disagree with. That's the price we pay. Is that new? No. They've been doing that already. Okay. Think of your son or daughter who's headed off to college. Time travel back 17, 18 years. Remember when they first learned how to walk? And I know it's a long time ago. Anybody remember that? Okay, you bend over like this, and you hang on to them, and they hang on to you, and you walk like this, and your back gets really sore. Okay? Anybody remember that, or do I look stupid up here for nothing? Yeah. Now, eventually, one of two things has to happen if they're going to walk. They let go, but eventually, what do we have to do? We have to let go. If we really want to know if they can walk or not, we have to let go. How many of you let go when they were learning how to walk? That's not a lot of hands, people. Come on. In my head, I'm picturing somewhere at St. Thomas, there's an 18-year-old who'll be starting school here, and he's stuck. Dad! Can't get to the next thing! Help! Of course you'll let go. Now, let me ask you this, though. When you let go of his or her hands, how many of you were convinced that they'd go, it's about time. This walking thing is really easy. I can skip, stroll, run, dance. I'm really good at this. Did anybody think your kid was actually going to do that? Of course not. What did you know was going to happen eventually if you let go? They would fall down. And you let them? Bad parents, bad parents. Of course you let go. And of course you knew they were going to fall down. That's the fear we have as parents when our kids go off to college. We let go, and they're going to fall down. And are they? Yeah, they are. They're going to make mistakes. Now, when you teach your kids how to walk, you don't do it in a playground that's got broken glass all over the place. You don't do it by a highway. You do it somewhere where when they fall, they don't get hurt. You try to minimize the damage, right? That's what we have to try and do when we send our kids off to college. That's what we do here at St. Thomas. How do we let them fall, but minimize the damage? But they are going to fall, and we have to let them. I never want to be the first one in these presentations to use the phrase, let go. So thank you for doing that for me, okay? For years, I didn't figure this out, and I would say let go, and I'd always have a couple parents just shooting daggers at me, okay? So the letting go process can be fairly complicated. But we let go when they learned how to walk. We let go when she learned how to swim and float on her own. We let go when they rode the bike for the first time. We let go the first time they got on that big school bus to go to school, or when we dropped them off at daycare and we had to drive away. We let go when we hand over the car keys. So the whole letting go thing that we can be really afraid of when they head off to college, it's not new. Parenthood is nothing if not a series of letting go in different ways and at different times. So again, the letting go can be difficult, but you've done it before. You've done it before, again, or your kids would not be ready to go to college. They wouldn't be here at orientation. And this is not new for us. We hear about helicopter parents and, snowplow parents and bulldozer parents and all these parents who are over-involved. Back in 1969, the president of St. Thomas was telling parents, you need to let go. This isn't new to us. Every generation of parents, we have to figure out how do we let go, okay? We have to let go of our expectations for who they'll be. My kid will be a child prodigy, the next Mozart. My son or daughter will be the CEO of an international corporation. My son will be a genius, or I'm going to settle for the really great hair, okay? My son or daughter will be a professional athlete. My child will follow in the family business. We're all lawyers, so I want my kid to be a lawyer. I want my kid to take over the family farm. We come from a family of teachers or electricians or whatever that is. We have to let go of that expectation because, sir, as you noted, that might not be their path. It's the path we want, but it might not be the path that they are called to. We have to let go of what we think college will and or should look like for them. If we went to college, my kids' experiences would be just like mine, okay? Or nothing like mine, okay? I always find it interesting. People relate to the second picture more than the first one. Okay? And if you didn't attend college, what are you basing your expectations on? Oftentimes it's the media. The reality is no matter what these expectations are, their experience will not be like yours. How many of you had cell phones when you went to college? Computers? Easy access to calling home? No, of course not. Their experience will look different. So again, we have to let go of some of the expectations. You may have had a great experience in college, and theirs might not live up to that. Yours probably didn't actually either. We tend to forget about the difficult times, the rose-tinted lenses, okay? Now, as parents, what are ways that we are developing? Well, we have to learn the cues. So when our son or daughter, it's move-in day, and they say, I'm going to pick on you, Mom, okay? I'm much too old to be your mom, you to be my mom, but okay, Mom, thanks for moving us in. Mom, Dad, that was great. I think we have it from here. That's not a cue for you to say, oh, good, let's go to supper. Maybe we'll spend the night in a hotel and come back tomorrow. What's that a cue for? Leave, beat it. Go home now. We're good. It is time for you to leave. We have to continue to learn those cues. We have to learn to accept their growth and development and try to not get in the way of that. We have to learn how to separate, even though they're the ones who are leaving. We have to learn to accept what can feel like rejection without deserting them. Yeah, Dad, I know we were raised Catholic, but I'm not sure the whole Catholic thing really works for me anymore. Okay? Ooh. Yeah, Dad, you know, I know you're a pretty hardcore Republican, but I think the Independent Party makes more sense to me. Ooh. Okay? Yeah, Dad, I know the family farm is really important to you, but I have zero interest in being a dairy farmer the rest of my life. Ooh. So how do we handle what can feel like rejection without deserting them? And then finally, and this one's a quote, we have to learn to build a new life having been thoroughly discredited by our teenager. Now, if we think about it, does this model seem to fit fairly well for you in what you're going through right now? I mean, I think so. The reality is this was developed in the 50s by a pediatrician to teach new parents how to handle their newborns and toddlers. Okay? We learn, what does it mean when they're crying like this? What does it mean when she says this? So all of these things are, again, as developmental tasks, we've been doing them for years and years and years and years and years. It's really not very new. Now, as parents in orientation, we send our kids off to college, we have a lot of what-ifs that run through our head. What if he can't get into the classes he wants? What if she gets a lousy professor? This is where Steve Maurer, in front of all of you, be my witnesses, goes on record to say, here at the University of St. Thomas, we have no lousy professors. Okay? This is purely a hypothetical situation. Okay? You've had a chance to meet some of the professors, and the reality is, I'm not real concerned about my kid getting a lousy professor. We do have good professors. But of course, we worry about that. What if he can't find a job when he graduates? What if she picks the wrong major? What if he gets sick? What if she hates her roommate? What if he does some of the stupid things I did in college? What if? Okay? So as parents, we have all of these what ifs running through our heads. Good. Good. You should be. We should be concerned about all of these things. We are on this end. We ask these questions all the time. That's why we have academic advisors and counselors and health services and public safety. That's why we have tutors. That's why we have clubs and organizations. That's why we have all these services. So ask these questions, and if they come up, it is not your job to solve them anymore. It's our job as parents to direct our sons and daughters to the resources on campus. Okay? My kid is having trouble. He hates writing papers. Should I help him with his paper when he's in college? No. Talk to your professor. Go to the writing center. That's what you do. Okay? So we have to shift gears a little bit. We also have common concerns, but we oftentimes don't speak these out loud. Will my son or daughter be okay? And underlying that question is a deeper question. Have I done enough as a parent for them to head off to college? Well, there's only two possibilities, folks. No, you haven't. We're not going to go there, okay? We don't have time or energy for a large group session here. The reality is, yes, you have. You've not been perfect parents. None of us are. But you've certainly been good enough to get them off to college. And then we ask some other questions. Will our sons and daughters change? And the answer is yes, we hope so. If they're the same 4 years from now as they are now, What a waste of 4 years and a boatload of money. And if they haven't changed and grown, shame on you and shame on us. We've all failed. Of course they're going to change. Will you change? We hope so. We hope you grow and change in good ways. But even if you don't, they will. So your relationship with them will change. The only question is, how will it change? Will they come home again? I have no idea. I don't even know what the right answer is, so just ask the question. Will they still need me? And the answer is yes, a resounding yes. Your role as parents is not reduced to transportation, doing laundry, and every semester writing a really big check to St. Thomas. That is not what it gets to be. The reality is, for a lot of our students, this is the biggest transition in their life. Our job as parents isn't done. In some ways, they need our support and understanding more than ever. And it's a little trickier for us parents at this particular time. And then for some of us, the common concern is just, I'm getting old. We used to joke years ago when we did these, the students get younger every year. And I don't know, it was a long time ago, one of my boss and I started to notice, the parents keep getting younger every year. It's just, you all look great, okay? The famous American philosopher John Cougar Mellencamp had this to say: there's nothing more sad or glorious than generations changing hands. Now, whether this is your first son or daughter leaving for college, or whether it's your last and you're looking at the empty nest, make no mistake, generations are changing hands. Generations are changing hands. And this adds an existential dimension to this experience for us. Big things are happening. And this is why a lot of those emotions are bigger. This is why it all feels kind of weird. Even though you're familiar with so much of this, having done it already in the past, generations are changing hands, and there's something pretty important about that. And that's just inescapable, okay? Now, a common concern that many parents have, but unfortunately, most parents don't ask this, is, will I be okay as a parent? Now, for those of you who have been through this before, the answer is, yeah, you will be okay. You will get through this if this is really difficult, okay? But we want you to be okay. So we want you to focus on you. And this is not Steve being entirely altruistic. What we know is that when parents are doing well, their kids do better. When parents struggle with this transition, okay, the more they struggle, the more there's a part of their son or daughter who brings that with them to college, or leaves a part of themselves connected at home. So my job will be a lot easier. My colleagues' job will be a lot easier if you take care of yourselves, if you tend to your needs. The thing we got to remember with this transition is this is a great opportunity, okay? When we sat through this last year, my wife was one of those parents. When I said, are people excited, her hand was instantly up. She was so jazzed about the whole empty nest thing. Unabashedly, Sam, you ready to go to college yet? You can leave early. No, he can't, honey. You can leave early. No, he can't. Okay? This is a wonderful opportunity for us to get to know our partners in different ways, for us to get to know our son or daughter in different ways. As we let go, we see that, wow, she really can walk. Wow, he really can figure out how to do the laundry without me. Okay? This is when we really get to discover a lot of their gifts and abilities. Wonderful opportunity for us. So one of the things we want you to do is we want you to be thinking, in what ways is your household changing? We're not asking the question, is it changing? We know it's changing. The question is how. How will relationships change? Not just with your son or daughter who's leaving, but with the other kids at home, with your partner, with yourself, with the people around you. What are the reactions of the other kids? When we dropped our first son off to college, he was nothing but excited. At least that's what he showed us. We drop him off, we jump into the van, we head back down here. Our younger son was devastated. He was bawling. It was just really hard for him. His best friend had just moved and wasn't coming back. And he was stuck at home alone with the two lamest parents on the entire planet. Okay? No, he was convinced of that. I'm going to be so bored. Within 2 weeks, he still missed his brother a little. But he was pretty excited. We're sitting around the table and he's saying, this is great. I start telling a story and I can finish it without my brother jumping in. Okay? The reality is this is a big transition for the kids that are still at home as well as for the one that's leaving. The one that's leaving has something to look forward to. This is exciting. For the ones at home, there's not a lot to look forward to when they leave. Maybe. Okay? How will roles change within the household? Tasks and chores. Think about when your son or daughter leaves for college, who's going to do all that work they do around the house? It's gratifying to hear the rest of you laugh, so I know I'm not the only one. I mean, think about it. They leave. You may have to hire a housekeeper and a gardener, okay? I did have a parent point out a number of years ago, one of the staff members here, she'll be presenting next, she said, if you have kids at home who don't drive, you do lose a chauffeur. And boy, did we find that out. It's like, are you kidding? Oh, come on. So that is one way that the tasks and chores, we really did notice it. Physical spaces and things. How will that change? Will they still have a room? Now, I've done these long enough that I have some good stories. I did this one about 10, 12 years ago, and afterwards, a mom comes up, and she starts talking to me, and she's just bawling. Ooh. So she's telling me how 30 years ago, when she went off to college, she came home for Thanksgiving, they had turned her room into a den, and they hadn't told her. And I'm like, oh, that's really hard. And that was 30 years ago. And you're still crying about it. And I didn't mean that in a shaming way. It's that's too long to hurt. You should probably talk to somebody. We don't want anyone to hurt that much. We don't. And I've actually had students, clients of mine, tell me similar stories. So be thinking about that stuff before you just do it. Okay, it's your house. You pay the mortgage. You pay the bills. You get to do whatever you want with it. But minimally, keep them in the loop. The time that this woman found out she didn't have a room is when, suitcase in hand, she opened her bedroom door. Okay? That's not a good time to find out. Okay? And how will your expectations change? Now, parent transitions. I grieved when my daughter left for college, and then I grieved when she came home for Christmas break. Okay? I can attest to this one. So in our heads, we think, okay, they're coming home from break, and it's going to look like a Norman Rockwell picture. The entire family will be around the table, and there'll be a warm glow. And everyone looks happy and relaxed, including Mom, who made all the food. And everything is wonderful. And then reality hits home. Hey, Mom, how you doing? Hey, Dad, here's some laundry. Okay, Jimmy's home from college. I got to run. I'll see you later, okay? He calls you at about 6 o'clock and says, we're going to head over to Devani's for supper. I know we go there all the time. But hey, Jimmy's home from college, okay? And off he goes. And then he calls at about 9 o'clock because he's a good son. He calls and says, still at Jimmy's, but Tom is in town too. And, the new Call of Duty came out. And so we're going to be playing that. Don't wait up for me. He gets home at about 3 in the morning. Okay, you get up, you go to work. He wakes up at about 11, has some breakfast, okay, goes back to bed because it was a late night, gets up at about 1:30, has some lunch, goes back to bed, it was a really late night. Wakes up at about 3, and, Jimmy said he wanted to go canoeing or something, so off he goes to Jimmy's, but he's a good kid, he leaves a note, okay? And then you repeat this for 4 or 5 days. You're expecting Norman Rockwell. And what you get is the wrong end of a bed and breakfast. Okay? I'm not saying what you should do here. I'm just saying sometimes we have to make those transitions, and this will lead into the next thing of sometimes it's helpful to talk about some of this stuff. I tell you, I got 2 college students living at home with us for the summer, and if either of their rooms looked this neat, I'd be overwhelmed with joy. Okay? So it really is a transition. The nice thing about this is the recognition that, wow, we've really made an adjustment as parents, okay? Whether there's kids home or not, we've adjusted to this, and now when they come back, it feels a little different. So that's a good sign. We've adjusted somehow. So we want you to be talking with your sons and daughters about some different things, particularly if they're living at home and commuting. Are you going to have a curfew for them, okay? And as the skits referenced, 9 o'clock at night, okay, I'm in bed at 9 o'clock at night. They're not even getting started. And it's not just social stuff. Sometimes their study groups don't start until 10 o'clock. So having a curfew at home may actually get in the way of some of their academics. So we really have to rethink what that should look like. How will you handle finances, credit cards? How will they pay bills? If they have health care issues, mental health or physical health, do you want to keep providing services at home, or do you want to shift that onto campus? Okay? Texts and email, what we're really talking about here is communication. How often do you expect to communicate with them, and how often do you expect to hear from them? Okay? So both directions. And you may not end up on the same page on this, but if you're expecting 15 texts a day from them, and they're thinking twice a week should be sufficient, that's a pretty big gap. It might be helpful to talk. If you're going to have them do laundry on campus, teach them the basics, says a guy who didn't know the basics in typical horror story. Frequency of visits, both them visiting you and you visiting them. When they are home, it's still okay to have some expectations. Yeah, I know everybody's home from college, but during those 2 weeks you're home for Christmas, you will be joining us for Christmas dinner. And then this Friday, Grandma and Grandpa are coming over. We do expect you to be there. Plan around it, okay? But to talk with them about that. How will you meet their friends and their roommates, and what do you want that to look like? How will you handle transportation to and from college, but also will they have a car on campus? Do they still have home responsibilities or other responsibilities? Who gets to make all these really important decisions? And this can be the most difficult one for us as parents. We don't want them to make the wrong decisions, okay? Any of your sons and daughters make the wrong decisions already? Anybody? Don't leave me hanging here, people. Did any of you make the wrong decisions when you were their age? Some of you aren't raising your hands, okay. How do we let them make these decisions even if we're not entirely convinced it's a good one? How will they spend holidays? You think they're coming home for Easter break. They're going to Cancun with a roommate in her family. They just haven't told you yet, okay? Pets. If your son or daughter leaving for college is the primary caregiver of a pet at home, start the transition now. I've heard horror stories from parents, I kid you not. This one I got from a parent saying, you know, Jill, that was Jill's dog. She left for college and the dog howled for days. Does Jill know this? No. Who's the one suffering besides the dog? You are. So if you think that might be the case, here's a heads up. Start taking care of that now. How will you handle their room? How will you handle their personal spaces or things? Oldest one left for college. Youngest one went into his room and started raiding everything he left behind, okay? Figure out what you want that to look like. In what ways do you still expect them to be a role model for their other siblings? Okay, so what can you do as parents? Continue to embrace their growth and change. It's not new. You've been doing this already. Continue to accept their autonomy, even if you don't agree with them. Listen to them. Value their ability to make decisions, even if they're not the decisions you would make. If it's a truly harmful decision, I'm going to take up juggling live chainsaws while tightrope walking over the Grand Canyon, talk them out of that one, okay? But I want to be a theology major, and you think that's not practical. Talk about that with them, okay? Please remind them that we have a counseling center. They'll hear it at some point today. They'll forget it. We're not real high on their priority list, okay? So hopefully none of your sons or daughters will ever need our services, but some of them probably will, and we just want you to know that we're here. So just to wrap it up, what you're experiencing is normal. If you really think it's not normal, talk to your partner, talk to your friends, your family, come and talk to me, talk with somebody. You are familiar with these changes, whether you realize it or not. Your family is changing, and yes, your son or daughter, they still need you in really, really important ways. Our job is not done when they head off to college. And you'll be okay. And please make sure that you're okay. Get involved here at St. Thomas if you'd like. Get involved with the parent network. Do the things that you need to do to be okay. Everybody comes out ahead if that's the case. We certainly want to welcome you to the Tommy family, and we're thrilled. We're just absolutely thrilled about your sons and daughters getting started here. It's really exciting and fun for us.